After a very big break, we're doing episode 23 right here. We're going to be talking about the legs today. So stay tuned, and I'm going to keep building this until it's finished, and I'm going to keep showing you where I'm going and what I'm doing as I do it. All right, I started with 3 pieces of 90 by 35 framing timber. This is what they use for framing of houses. This is just pine, and I cut 3 of them at 240 millimeters long. And there's the 3 of them just there. This is the description of what we're making now. We're making the top part of the booster covers. That's the full measurements and the shape of them. As you can see, they've got to be 80 millimeters wide, and currently they're 90. So I put them through the table saw and I cut them down to 80 millimeters, as you can see here. Then I marked the exact center and drilled a pilot hole. Now the exact center of the whole piece, left and right. So it's the middle from the length and the middle from the height. Then I've got a 74 mil hole saw, but if you've got a 76 mil hole saw or a 72 mil hole saw, it'll be good enough. Now I did this in the drill press because I have the drill press, but you could easily do this with a hand drill. There's the hole there, as you can see. And then I cut right through the middle. So I had a line through the middle there, I cut them, and I've cut some 45s off the side there. You can use the original drawing I showed you a minute ago as your template, and that's the shape of the top of the booster covers. Now I've clamped 2 of them together and drilled a pilot hole right through the middle. What we're trying to do is create a channel through them. I've got a 16mm spade bit. These bits are really cheap. I bought a whole pack for like $15. Put them on my cordless drill and clamped them together so they didn't move, and then drilled them all the way down. When you separate them, that's what you get. That's the shape you get, and that's the kind of shape we want at the top there. And then I marked the back. I came in a centimetre and I cut through. So the half of that curve is disappeared. Now we're making the bottom part of the booster covers. Now this is the other 2 pieces that we had cut before. They're the measurements there. You can see the top measurements up there, 80 millimeters wide, same thing. So we're going to do the same thing for these 2, cut them 80 millimeters wide, and then mark them in the middle as so. I drilled some pilot holes just for the jigsaw blade, so I could cut it with the jigsaw. I did run through the circular saw just to take a bit of the meat out, but you could do it with a jigsaw if you wanted to, which I did for the rest of it, as you can see here. And that's the rough cut. And my safety boots I'm wearing at the time, which is fantastic. It was summer, so I was a bit hot. And this is just a rough mock-up of how it sits on the leg. As you can see, we're starting to get some kind of shape. But they're too high, they've got to be shaved the other way as well. So there's the 2 now, I've made 2 of them, and now it's time to get the file out. But before I do that, you've got to shave the sides down so they curve. It's down a centimetre on each side from the centre. As you can see in this picture, it's a bit more clear. And what I did is I screwed them to a piece of wood so they wouldn't move, and I screwed the piece of wood to my workbench, which has seen better days. And then I ran an electric plane across the side till I got the right shape I wanted. And I did both sides just like that, and then sanded them. Got the sander out by hand and sanded them. Now we're starting to get some shape. You can see the curve in there now, it's looking much better. I've come up 55 millimeters and drawn a line across the top. And then I've come in about a centimetre on each side and drawn another line. I've got a 6mm drill, and I just drilled down a little bit just because we need the curve of that top there to stay. And this is how we're going to cut it, so I've marked out those points. They're going to be channels. I've got one of these wheels now. I had this already from other things. This actually cuts tiles and aluminium and so on. It's pretty lethal, so I suggest using a guard, not like I've done here. But if you want to use one of these, you can. But there's other ways you can do it. If you've got a router, which I didn't have at the time, that would make the job a lot easier. And I just shaved backwards and forwards using that blade without cutting into that curve at the top there to give the rough shape. Then I set the same drill back in the drill, and I just set the depth so on the base so it wouldn't move, and I moved a bit of wood backwards and forwards, shaving the unevenness out of the cut. You can see the one on the right looks much neater than the one on the left. They still need a bit of a fix up, but after a sand they look pretty good. Now we're just getting a tenon saw, and we're just going to cut slight slots in the side, which we need to have as part of the design. And they're the pieces all sanded and cleaned up. As you can see, they look much nicer. Then I sanded the top blocks as well, so they were all nice and clean as well. What we've got here is I've drilled a few holes into the legs, which will hide the head of a screw, and then I've painted them white. But the head of the screw will be screwed into the back of the shoulder pieces we were talking about before, or the booster covers, sorry, that we're talking about before. So we'll screw the screws into the booster covers at the back, so the heads stick out. Then we'll put glue in those holes, and the screws will sit in those holes, and then we glue underneath as well, so the whole thing's glued. And this is the covers painted. There's a little bit touch-ups to be done around the curves down the bottom, but I painted those silver, and we've got the rest of it all painted blue. It's a bit of a paint bleed leak. We're going to go over that with a touch-up brush for the blue, just to cover over that silver where it leaked under the tape. And how I mounted the horseshoe parts is via screws at the top there like that, which will be covered up by the buttons that go over the top of them. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you want to see the first in the series, the video is right here, and you can watch all from start to finish up until this point. But my video skills are pretty average back then, so give me a break on that one. I got better over time, I hope, and I'll see you in the next one.